I'll take this opportunity to introduce our speakers today. I'll start with Dr. Raphael Hannon. Good morning if you are present.
Morning, good morning.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Hannon is a postdoctoral researcher, Evolutionary Studies Institute at the Evolutionary Studies Institute at the University of Leeds. I started his career, archaeological career, in 2011 at the Pantheon and Sorbonne University in Paris, where he did his archaeological studies, focusing on the evolution of animal-human interaction. He completed his PhD in quaternary and prehistory in prehistory at the National Museum of Natural History of Paris on the phenomenon of early Pleistocene bone assemblages from South African caves. He is interested in evolution of Pleistocene hominins subsistence behaviors. Also joining us is Dr. Katsamdanga. He's an archaeologist with the University of Zimbabwe, interested in the relationship between people and their environments, spatial archaeology, GIS, heritage management, and heritage economy. He's also interested in the environments associated with hominin remains. He's developing an interest in the cave morphology and their use by the past and present societies. Also, another speaker we have is Dr. Namo. She's an archaeologist. She's an archaeologist and senior lecturer at the University of Zimbabwe, who has taught the early prehistory of African archaeology for many years. She developed an interest in this subject, which is the focus of the current project. Currently, she's a research specialist in the Research and Innovation Directorate of the University of Zimbabwe. Then I've spoken to this before, so I've already said hi to both of them. We also have got Dr. Hope Russell. Good morning.
He's not here.
He's not here. He's on the plane.
Okay. So he's multifaceted. He's a geologist, geomorphologist, gearchaeologist, a caver, and a cartologist with research experience in several countries, including France, Southern Africa, China, Ethiopia, Lebanon, Bulgaria, Djibouti, Iran, Morocco, Belgium, the list goes on. Due to this, he has worked in almost all geomorphological contexts, that is the fluvial, volcanism, lacustrine, periglacial, colluvial systems, and the karst. He has led several research programs on human evolution in Africa since 2015. And currently, he's a researcher in the French National National Center for Scientific Research. And lastly, we have got Sandrine Pratt. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, Sandrine Pratt is a senior researcher at the French National Center of Scientific Research. She's based at the Musée du Homi, mind the pronunciation, but in Paris. Her research interest is focused on origin of human evolution, especially on Plio, Pleistocene hominin, focusing mainly on the early homos, paranthropines, and australopithecines. She's doing some fieldworks in Kenya, in West Turkana, with the West Turkana Archaeological Project, which have discovered the oldest stone tools, that is 3.3 million years ago, and many Oldowan and the Julian sites. I think you know that we used to say the oldest Oldowan tools we have is around 2.6 million years ago. So at least we are finding something here, 3.3 million years ago. That's far back. Good morning, all presenters, once again.
Morning.
So without wasting much time, I would like to check if Dr. Rafael is now ready.
Yeah. Actually, Dr. Seke Katsamudanga will start to present a little bit, and then I will follow.
So that's fine. So, Dr. Katsamudanga, I give the floor to you.
Thank you, Dr. Marufu, for the introductions. You did a great job on the background of the presenters. This is a presentation we are making on our proposed title is Hominins from Plio. It's Pleistocene, Pleistocene and Paleoenvironments in Zimbabwe. Not the slight change on Plio Pleistocene, but this is all in order. So we are developing this project to look at potential evidence for hominins from the Zimbabwean environment. So to move forward with this development of this project, I did preliminary research in Makonde district and also in the Gonarejo area. So what we are talking about is the findings coming out of that preliminary research that I did. I'm saying that I did because I was the principal researcher in there and of course assisted here and there by our colleagues. But essentially, I'm the one who carried out the research in these areas. The presenters have been introduced. I think the PowerPoint is, yeah, here we are. It looks from the audience, most of the people there are familiar, but just in case there are some who are joining us, these are the faces to the presenters. Of course, Laurent to the far right is already in France. But we want to look at, to talk about the potential for hominins in Zimbabwe. I think listeners may also be interested in why we are talking of hominins and the hominids. When we were still in undergraduate, I think we were talking more about the hominids, and now we are talking of the hominids. Maybe my colleague, Dr. Rafael, will explain further on that, but hominids are a more broader term referring to us human beings, our ancestors, and perhaps also broadening to other primates. And the hominins is now more specific to the Homo genus, so to speak. So we want to look at potential evidence for hominins in Zimbabwe, and our preliminary research, the one that I led in Makonde and the Gonarejo, has given us some pointers to how we can develop the project further. So basically, that's the background to the presentation.
Okay, so thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us today. It's a great pleasure for us to be here and to talk about what we are doing here. So basically, why are we interested in the late Pliocene and the Pleistocene? It's because it's really important for the human lineage evolution, mostly because during that time we observed the important climatic and faunal turnover mostly around 2.6 and 0.7 million years old. And also during that time, we observed the first appearance of early Homo at 2.8 million years old, and the appearance and disappearance of the genus Paranthropus, which is related to the human lineage. So it's hominins. And also during that time, as it was introduced at the beginning, we observed the first appearance of tools, bone and stone tools, at early as 3.3 million years old. But the main problem right now during the late Pliocene and early Pleistocene is that most of our information is coming from two main areas, which are East and South Africa. And between both of South Africa and East Africa, which is Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Kenya mostly, there is kind of a blind spot on the map where we don't have a lot of information. Like, for example, Zimbabwe. Of course, in Zambia, there was the first discovery of the broken heel skull in 1921, which is now identified as Homo heidelbergensis, dated back to 300,000 years old. We have some few ex situ stone tools coming from Zimbabwe, except for the new Moganidze site in the Chimanimani area. But unfortunately for now, we don't have any bones from the late Pliocene and early Pleistocene, and no well-dated stratigraphic sequence, which means that it remains difficult to fill the gap between the South African and East African fossil records. Oh, the geological map is not showing very well, but it's very interesting because in Zimbabwe, actually, we have a mix of both contextual deposits that we found in South Africa and East Africa. We have the end of the East African Rift in the northern part of the country, but we also have karstic areas which are similar to the cradle of humankind in South Africa, but also quaternary fluvial areas and lacustrine environments, which are more similar to East African fossil records, as we can see here. Because in East Africa, our fossil record is mostly coming from this kind of environment, like, for example, in Kenya, in the West Turkana, where it was found the oldest stone tools. So it's mostly lacustrine deposits. And in South Africa, most of our information on human evolution during the late Pliocene and early Pleistocene is coming from caves. So how to proceed? It's basically, it starts first with the studying of satellite images and geological maps, but also going back to old reports on geology and speleology from Zimbabwe. That's before the field work, and then during we are conducting food surveys and also looking for cave and outcrops, and also it's the most important part of the work is to talk to local people in the area that know better than us the environment and the possibility to find a cave, for example. So we decided first to go to a karstic area, so a cave environment similar to the cradle of humankind, which is situated north in the Makonde district in North Shinoi, there is this huge plateau, which is the Loma Godin plateau in northern part of Shinoi. So Shinoi is already known for the Shinoi caves, but from the geology and speleology reports, we know now that there is more caves around that plateau. So we decided to go there and try to find more caves.
No, instructions.
Okay.
Yes. So
from our preliminary results, we first identified what was known before as Ulster Cave, which is now known as Strathcone Cave, which is 124 meters long. You can see here Dr. Seke Katsamudanga entering in the main entrance of the cave from the outside. But we also found another second unknown entrance. And what is interested for us is that, it's 242 meters long. And what is interesting for us is that inside we have the presence of calcite deposit, which can be actually well dated by uranium and uranium series datation. And below that calcite, we have what we call the breccia, which is basically old sediments that have been calcified. So now it's mostly hard like a rock, and inside it's possible to find old bones. So it's really interesting for us. So there is definitely the presence of breccia, but for now. So yeah, in that cave we have the presence of breccia, but no bones identified yet. Mostly because of the bats, because inside that cave there is a lot of bats, and the bat droppings are all over the floor and the walls, which avoid us to have a proper look on that breccia. But this is a really promising cave because the breccia deposit is huge, and we have the combination with the calcite and the flowstone cover here on the right, which can be well dated. Okay. Okay. We also found another cave, which is the Kaukua cave. That cave is really interesting because we have also the presence of breccia, but we have bones, fossil bones inside. There is also the presence of calcite, which is also which can also be dated, and that cave is 232 meters long. And you can see that in the first chamber there is a huge pit with a tree growing inside the cave, because that pit is connecting with the outside from the roof of the cave. And on the below the tree there is a more recent deposit. So this is the breccia inside Kokua cave. Inside that breccia, we could identify some burr bone fragments, but also a nice proximal humerus of probably a small carnivore. Some other long bone fragments, but also what looks like a bovine enamel fragment. Based on the gross morphology, it looks like an antilopini, and also an almost complete lagomorph skull, which are the family of hare and rabbits. In that area also, along the Lumagundi plateau, we were able to visit a rock shelter. It was before a cave, but all of the galleries were blocked, mostly by people from this area. So we don't have access to the cave anymore. It's mostly a rock shelter, but on the walls we were able to identify some new rock art drawings. So that place is known as Inyati Cave. So that was for the first area, the karstic area for the caves, and then we proceed to go to an area which is more similar to the environment that we know from East Africa, which are open air area, fluvial terraces, and alluvial deposits. So basically, it works like that on the shame. We have the main bank of the river, and then along that river we have the terraces deposits. So we were interested in see that these terraces. You can see here in the Gonaizu National Park the Shiloro Cliffs. So you have the Shiloro Cliffs in quartzite, then the first slope, which is coming from the erosion of that quartzite, and then below you have what is now the section of the two first terraces, the T1 and the T2. And based on climatic data, we know that mainly the T1 is mostly late Pliocene, and the T2 should be a middle Pleistocene. Okay, so now you have a picture, a map of the area that we were looking for. So you can see on the left the actual main bank of the Mwenezi River, and along that bank you have the terraces. Here there is a picture taken from the top of the T2, and you can see the deposit of the T1, the first terraces. Okay. So along that river, we were able to see some Middle Stone Age stone tools on the top of the T2. It was mainly cores, a few flakes, but no hand axes. The raw material, it's mainly quartz, quartzite, and rhyolite. And Dr. Seke Katsamunanga was also able to identify some Iron Age material from the top of the T1. So now that we have more information on the potential of Zimbabwe for the early Stone Age, and mostly for the late Pliocene and early Pleistocene deposits, we aim to build a new project for mainly to look for Pliocene and Pleistocene deposits in Zimbabwe. It's mainly for filling the gap between East and South Africa that I was saying before during the introduction, and hopefully we would like to create a permanent archaeological site in the future to teach both Zimbabwean and international students. And to do that, we are gathering an international team of archaeologists, geologists, and paleontologists. So our expected outcomes in the future, when we will actually conduct the research, the outcomes will be, of course, to communicate about that project, to teach also, and to look for potential excavations in these areas, and to use that for local and international student training. And we would like again to thank you all for being here, and to thank you to having us today to talk about our future project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raphael. Yes, I can see a raised hand there. Dr. Msimba.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation and the project, which seems to be quite impressive and promising, in as much as trying to fill the black spots in terms of the Pliocene and Pleistocene hominins in Zimbabwe or in Southern Africa. I, however, have one question. The identification of similar environments, I just wanted to consider the factors that you considered in saying these are similar environments. In a sense, I'm trying to ask, did you do some sort of predictive modeling in as far as trying to compare the East African environments and the Southern and South African environments to try and find where we might find similar occurrences in Zimbabwe? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. Yes, whilst we wait for others to give us their comments and questions, I think the presenters, you may respond to that.
Okay, thank you for your question. We didn't do any modeling before, and it's not mostly related to the environments, but mostly on the nature of the depositional context and on the geology. So in order to preserve the bones, we have to get an environment which is at least not full of, but with at least some of carbonate to conserve the bones. So for that, we were looking for caves because they are really good trap for bones, for old bones, mostly due to the calcite, which can cover and protect the bones from degradation. But also in fluvial and in the future, we hope in lacustrine environments, which are sometimes also full of carbonates and can conserve the bones. So it means that we can have similar geological deposits, but not necessarily the same type of environment. It means that it could be in Zimbabwe in the past more wet or more dry than in East Africa or South Africa, but they can have a similar geological context that can help to preserve the bones.
Okay, sorry, Dr. Maru.
Yeah.
So what it means is that the consideration is only based on the geology?
Yeah, mostly, yeah.
Okay, no other factors, because there might be other factors that might also contribute to the occurrences of the hominins. That's my thinking.
Yeah, that's actually true. There is a lot of different factors that can affect the occupation of hominids, but we started with what we already know. And we know that we can find some bones in South Africa in caves, and in East Africa in lacustrine, and sometimes in fluvial environments. So we start with that, something that we already know, and that could help us to find this kind of deposits. But of course, there are a lot of different factors that can affect that occupation. But I think that first we will have to, in the future, find deposits with bones, and that will help us to reconstruct the past environments, and then talk about these kind of factors that can affect the occupation of hominids.
Yes, I can see yet again, Dr. Shenjere. Yes, do you mind, with this one, do you mind to unmute your microphones after speaking? Yes, Dr. Nyabes. You may
thank you. Thank you, moderator. Thank you for the presentation. Mine is a question on just a bit more clarification or a bit of explanation. I got excited by the and interested in the Iron Age that was discovered. Discovered or that you found in. I guess it was in. I don't know if I missed it, but it sounds like it was in association with the Stone Age tools that you also identified. Is there any, what sort of Iron Age material was it, and what are we looking at in terms of what we're seeing in terms of association? In terms that it's both the Stone Age and the Iron Age in the same context. What sort of preliminary ideas do you have now, if any?
Thank you, Dr. Shenjere, for the question. Most of the Iron Age locations that we found are not directly in association with the Stone Age sites. I think it's only an occasion of one where we also saw pieces of ceramics on the same site, but the majority are at different locations. Generally in the same area, but at different locations from where the stone artifacts were found. Mostly these were just pieces of pottery. Very few of them were diagnostic. But for those that decorations, the decorations are mostly cross-hatched decorations, which perhaps we may place. It's not very precise, but maybe generally in the later Iron Age. I think there's one shade which I saw with almost wavy lines, and perhaps for that one it might be in the early Iron Age, but it's not very clear. The sites are not very extensive. It's just a scatter of potsheds over a few meters, but not very diagnostic. There is one that perhaps would be of interest, because on the site where the potsheds were found, some kind of a median, because there is ash, but there is also a copper bangle and a wound wire of copper. But then you begin to see other recent material. There is a nail and some bullet cartridges. That is because it's in the park in Gonarejo. But I think the copper bangles and the pottery belong to an earlier period than the other material. In the Makonde district, in some of in two caves, I found pottery that is decorated. Generally, I would place it in the Msengese period, but some of the sheds, at least for one of the pots, it's a full pot, but the decoration, I haven't seen it in the published literature. We can call it punctates, but the positioning of the punctates and the whole motif is kind of different. But due to some of the restrictions we had in the area, it was difficult to further explore the pots. But they are of perhaps archaeological interest if we get the occasion to develop the project fully. So what this seemed to mean, at least for the Chinoi, the caves, yes, there's breccia. We may, perhaps for those ones, we may say there's association, but in terms of periods, this would be belong to different periods. The caves are also being used in contemporary times. If we get time to talk just about the caves in future, you will see lots of material that is being deposited in those caves by either the apostolic people or people using them for various ritual activities, which perhaps would be of anthropological interest today. But to answer your question, I think there is to some extent the Msengese pottery in the Makonde area. I could not get the typical shares that perhaps would be called Chinoi as described in some earlier paper, but because of the limited nature of the material, it's not yet firm to say this is the complete tradition that we have in the area. But there is Msengese material. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, there is also another. In fact, there are two questions. The first one, like on the bones, are they fossilized? That is from Dr. Msindo. And this one, I think, goes along with the other question I also have. Like we noted that there were some carnivorous teeth and other fauna materials trapped in the breccias on the slides which you showed. Did you also made an attempt maybe to break the breccia or maybe loose breccias you found to see probably what is entrapped inside, or it was just like the surface outlook which you mainly concentrated on? And also that there are some future plans probably to have maybe explorations, further exploration in these areas, so that maybe if possible we can blast one of the areas, or maybe if there are mining operations that you are always on the site monitoring and progressing with the research.
Okay, thank you for the question. So yeah, the bones are fossilized. They are for the Makonde district. What we find in the Kaukua cave in the breccia, what we call breccia, it means that the sediments themselves are kind of fossilized. They are calcified. So all of that old sediments, they are like rock now. And inside you can have the bones that are sometimes highly fossilized inside. It depends also on the nature of the cave, the amount of calcite that you have from the top of the cave. But mainly these bones inside the breccia, they are indeed fossilized. So by looking at what we are doing in South Africa from the Cradle of Humankind, which are the similar deposits, we are not blasting the deposits anymore. What we do, it's usually trying to collect block of breccia out of the cave, and then we proceed to dig these blocks in the lab with acidic solutions, for example, to dissolve the breccia but keep the bones, or with hammers and scissors or this kind of tools to take out the bones from the breccia. So we hope to have the opportunity to explore more this area, to find more potential breccia, and maybe, yes, in the future, try to get a piece of breccia out of the caves, but not for now. And I can see in the chat that there is another question related to the type of information that we expect from the local communities. Of course, we are not expecting them to give us answer on the Pliocene hominids. Of course, we are mostly talking to them to get information on the location of the caves, because sometimes they are really, really difficult to locate it. The area is really big, and the information that we have for now are coming up from old speleology and geology reports, and the GPS coordinates are sometimes out of date. So we are not able to identify the entrance of the cave. So we are mostly talking about local people to get information on caves, and also because I think that there is a lot of caves that are unknown except for local people. They are not identified yet. So yes, we are talking about them mostly about the location of the caves.
Thank you. Yes, I can see a raised hand. Precious, you can speak.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Marufu. Thank you, Dr. Katsamdanga, and your colleagues for the presentation. I have a question. Mine is early Pleistocene, for example, early Pleistocene hominid sites or caves, for example, the ones that we have here in South Africa, the squat crans in the Steekfontein, they are usually associated with early Pleistocene artifacts or Doan artifacts, Achillean. So my question is, did you find anything similar in these your caves, your Chinoi caves, maybe be it on surface? We know that you were still doing something which is preliminary, maybe be it on surface when you were surveying. Did you find anything sort of like similar to these or to something that we find in South African hominid caves? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Unfortunately, we didn't. We found that these fossilized bones, but actually, besides Steekfontein or Swartkrans, there is a lot of more caves in the cradle of humankind, and it's actually very, very rare to have a good stone tool assemblage from these caves, because we have to keep in mind that these caves are mostly working as traps, and there were not proper sites that were occupied by hominids. So we don't have a lot of stone tools from these kind of caves. So it's really difficult for us to be able to identify stone tools from this kind of deposits in caves, and also because in the breccia we have a mix of a lot of geological coming from the collapse of the roof, the collapse of the walls, and it's sometimes difficult for us to identify what is a stone tool or not. So we don't have a lot of stone tools in this kind of deposits, unfortunately.
Okay. Are you answered, Precious?
Yeah, I'm answered. Thank you. Maybe just to ask further, are you planning to do any like excavating or maybe any excavations to see maybe you can recover anything? I don't know. Any plans?
Well, at the moment, the caves that we managed to locate and enter are actually being used, as I've said, by contemporary communities. Some of them are actually being mined for guano, which means they've already been disturbed. But perhaps when we do further research and find more caves, we may be able to work on them and perhaps get to see if we can find any material from them. From the few that we managed to locate, it's difficult to see the potential for excavation. Partly because for some of them we were not able to get to the last chambers of the caves. But for the areas that we were able to visit, we still have to assess if it is really possible to conduct excavations in them. But like I said, most of them have been disturbed by people who are mining or who are making use of the caves. They will get in and move the material to one side and then lay their own material, pottery, and so forth, and pieces of cloth. So it's very disturbing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Whilst I wait for other people to make comments or ask questions, I wanted to comment on Inyant Cave. The cave where I saw rock art. Is it a karstic environment or is just a granite? It was appearing to me like it's a granite kind of environment. And how, if it is indeed a granite, how related is it to the research? Then the other issue, I want to raise your attention to some of these important places we have. Like we have in Mbire district, we have got a petrified forest, like a vast land with fossilized trees. It's a national monument called Mabokis or Mazambara. And we happen to have a number of them in northern Zimbabwe, mostly near the Zambezi escarpment overlooking the Zambezi Valley. Then also, I'm not sure if you also did a check at Chinoi Cave proper, I mean the Chirorodziva, where there is parks there. Those are some of the largest we have. And of course, Dr. Kasamnanga, you are also aware of the pressures that might be found at Redcliffe Caves, where we had thousands and thousands of lithic artifacts which were recovered there. And also, like I've seen that you have also made mention of Chimanimani area. Yes, it's also one of the potential areas where we also see karstic environments, some with petrified flora and faunal materials.
Thank you, Dr. Marufu, for your question and contribution, I would say. Thanks for raising the Redcliffe site, although I'm not very sure of the nature of the caves there. It might need a recheck, but it may be more recent in terms of the Pliocene, Pleistocene that we are interested in. But we'll relook and see what can be made out of that. For the Mbire district, yes, we are aware of the fossil forests. In fact, there is quite a lot. I've seen a lot of fossilized wood from the Zambian side, and also in Mozambique, there is a lot of fossil wood. Although I think this might be much older in terms of formation in relation to the period of question. But nevertheless, I think there are just areas to just look at and perhaps determine with certainty if they could be useful in the research. Then for Inyat Cave, it's actually dolomite rock. It's not granite. So this is why we are saying there were caves on that hill. According to the local people, these could actually be up to 100 or so meters long, but they blocked them because they are now using the shelters for worshipping. And so they wanted to make the area safe, I think. But there is also lots of ceramics there. But it's dolomite, to answer your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I also see Humphrey, you have a raised hand. Yes, you can say.
Okay. Hello, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So I have one question. I think partly it's taking on from what Precious just asked about the issues to do with the stone tools, and then I think you said that you don't have the stone tools, much of that within your surveys, which you did. And then mine would be, I understand that it's a preliminary, but I think because when I saw saying the Pliocene and Pleistocene hominids, I think if it was dated, I think it would have given more, maybe some context to the caves, at least maybe just a few days. I think this would have gave more context to the presentation. So my question is, how then are we sure that it's within these Plio-Pleistocene when there is no dating? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. Actually, for the terraces, for example, in Gonareju, we can get some insights from the dates of these terraces based on climatic events. But in the caves, we have to keep in mind that the calcification process of the sediments and the deposit of several layers of calcite, and also the process of creation of a cave itself, it takes a lot of time. And also the Lomagodi Plateau has it's coming from the same how do you call that? The same geological group than the caves that we find in the cradle of humankind. So it means that they have the same age, the caves themselves, and then they probably get opened around the same times. Of course, it depends on local climatic and environmental conditions, but we can expect that because these dolomite rocks from the cradle of humankind and Lomagondi Plateau have the same age, they can have similar history. And then to get sediments inside that have been calcified with bones that are also fossilized inside, we can expect that they are from at least the early middle Pleistocene and probably early Pleistocene in age to be that fossilized and covered by flowstone.
Okay. Thank you very much. And yeah, maybe the last question from my part. Are there any possibilities of recovering hominins from other environments other than karstic and probably those like open air in Eastern Africa, like Turkana in particular?
Well, actually, our maybe it's possible, but I don't know many other sites that have yielded hominin remains other than mostly lacustrine and karstic deposits. So, because as I said before, you need a deposit, not an environment, but at least a deposit that can preserve carbonates in order to have bones inside. So it's mostly from lacustrine and karstic deposits, and sometimes from fluvial, alluvial deposits. But I don't know what kind of different deposits you have in mind. Maybe there is some others that I'm not aware about. But because, for example, we don't have a lot of fossil bones from equatorial forest environment, because of the vegetation and of the roots and the trees that are really acidic and can degrade the bones in the sediments. So that's why we are looking for similar kind of environment than East Africa and South Africa, full of carbonates and not really acidic.
Yeah, okay. I don't have any in particular though, but I was just trying to find out whether we have so much options in terms of environments we can look at. But of course, all in all, it's all about the issue of preservation.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I see another raised hand there. Dr. Kapuma, yes, you may come in.
Okay, thank you so much for this very intriguing and fascinating presentation. Just a minor comment and perhaps another minor question. I think for a very long time we've been told that there's not we don't have environments in Zimbabwe which could have preserved hominids or hominin, and that these were just restricted to South Africa, in South African caves and in East Africa. So I think it's a bit refreshing to see work that perhaps then tries to look at hominins as you're putting it across within the Zimbabwean context. Then the question I have, again minor, but you zoomed or you seem to have zoomed in 3 areas in Zimbabwe, and so the question is do you have enough going for you in terms of sustaining a project, or the project that you're talking about? Do you have enough going on for you there in those areas, and do you have plans to perhaps expand to other parts of the country? And if so, which areas do you think show potential, again, in terms of exploring this hominin phenomenon in Zimbabwe? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your question. There is, I think, more than enough, actually, because all of the three areas are really big. They are really huge, and with many opportunities inside. But as we said before, there are also more areas that maybe should be checked. Like there is also the Chimanimani area, of course, we talked about that area before, but also along the Zambezi and the Bambezi, the Bembezi rivers, there is more fluvial terraces, and we know from old references from Neville Jones or old archaeologists in the 20s, from 40s, that they found some ondaxes from this kind of deposits also. And pebble tools. So now, because all of these founds, not in Chimanimani, but from the Zambezi and Bambezi River, most of these finds were ex situ and not coming from proper excavations. We don't have a lot of information about these areas. So we are trying first to focus on good geological settings to look for Plio-Pleistocene, late Pliocene, early Pleistocene deposits. So yeah, but there is more than enough for now, I think.
Yes, thank you very much. I don't seem to be having any other question around from the those in attendance. Should anyone maybe want to get in touch or have a question in the future, how do they get in touch with the team?
Thank you, Dr. Marufu. I'm available. I think we can share later on, perhaps on the Zapata platform, our emails. But I think the majority have my email address. But we'll try and share on the platform the contact details for the members. But I think I'm readily available. That is if someone is checking from within Zimbabwe. But beyond that, I think in any university in this country, but especially perhaps the three ones, MSU, GZU, and ours, you will be able to redirect whatever information will be coming to this team. I don't know if I answered your question.
Certainly, yes. Yes. Yes, I can also see a raised hand there. Dr. Namo, you can come in.
Thank you, Dr. Maruf. Thank you for hosting us. Yeah, I just wanted to say that to my former students, I can see many of them here, and of course, I will talk on behalf of Professor Pitti. That I mean, this for me, this was very interesting because we were teaching this, and when we were teaching these sort of things, they seemed very foreign, the breccias, the fluvial platforms and so forth. So I'm very happy to be part of this team and to talk to all of us about this. And I hope everyone enjoyed. And also I'm hoping that we can stimulate interest in most of our researchers in this area, so that even beyond this project, others can come in and we can really fill this gap that is definitely apparently there. Hello, Professor Pitt. Thank you.
All right. We thank you. Any other comments? Any other question? Yeah, I think you have done justice, because I don't seem to be having another question here or a comment. So probably at this juncture, I may come back again to the team, like what are your final remarks?
Thank you. I would want perhaps to say thank you for hosting us, Dr. Marufu. And perhaps certainly we will chat some more about this, given also your research in the Chimanimani area. I would also want to thank Great Zimbabwe for the platform, for hosting us, and for all the colleagues who graced this occasion and their insightful questions. I think they will help us rethink a number of issues and perhaps chart the way forward. So thank you, everyone, for the attendance.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us today. Thank you.
So, by way of conclusion, I would also want to thank everybody for joining us today in this wonderful talk. And it's just the beginning. And we anticipate to have another one in the near future, because this has generated a lot of interest among the people. So unfortunately, some of the people couldn't join on time because of other commitments and pressing issues, and others because of connectivity problem. But nonetheless, those who are present really enjoyed. We enjoyed, I enjoyed, and I look forward to future presentations like this. Anyone who would want to say something before we close off?
Sorry, Dr. Murphy. I think from Zapad, if the colleagues or anyone who has interesting projects or wants to present, I think they can just get in touch with the Zapad team, and then yes, we can book them in. And otherwise, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Dr. Kapuma. Yes, I can see. Thank you so much thank you so much to the panel. That's Dr. Tondlana, and also many others. I'm sure they are also saying it in their hearts. So I thank everybody, and this is the end of today's session. Thank you very much. Meet you in the next